Hey people, it's the King Cat, Eddbud here. Today I have an initial review for you of a shoe that I've been dying to get my mitts on for a long time. I've often wondered what the Deviate Nitro Elite version might be like, and I finally got my hands on a pair. I took them out for an initial blast, and here's my thoughts. Thanks for joining me today guys here at Eddbud Running Shoe Reviews. We of course review other stuff from time to time as well. There's loads of things heading into the studio for review. We've got the Speed 2 from Saucony coming up later this week. I've also got some apparel that's arrived from Puma, so I'm keen to try that out. Although it's a bit warm for it right now. I might have to wait till the temperatures drop a bit. If it's your first time here guys, or you're a regular viewer, please hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications of when we roll out those new videos for you. And it really helps the channel out too if you give this video a thumbs up like and drop a comment below. Dankeschön. Paid for with my own Earth credits this one. I picked it up from Start Fitness here in the UK. They seem to get a shipment of them and put them out with no fanfare whatsoever. It was lucky that a couple of viewers emailed me and let me know, and I didn't hesitate. So these come up at 169 Earth credits here in the UK. It's not bad for a carbon plate shoe actually when you think about it. Some of its competitors are vastly more expensive than this. I have opted for a UK size 10.5 in this shoe. That's a US 11.5. Typically I'm an 11 in UK sizes, but I did read a few initial reviews of this shoe and they did state that it does seem to run a little long, and that is my experience in Puma shoes at this point. I can get away with perhaps an 11 in some of the other trainer models, when you want to wear a bit of a thicker sock and winter's coming. An insane weight here, 220 grams, which is 7.8 ounces. I mean, that's wildly low. It's even lower than the Liberate Nitro in an 11. So yeah, I think only the Vaporfly 4% Flyknit, or perhaps the Streak 7, maybe the RC Elite Original come close to that weight. So it certainly trumps all of them. Aside from the Run Fast Pro from Reebok, I don't think that's too worried about losing its crown for the lightest shoe in my collection, and that's only 128 grams, so this has got a lot to shave off yet. We'll start with the upper first, and what a beautiful upper it is. I think you'll agree. It very much is the Liberate Nitro upper, grafted onto the Deviate Nitro midsole, sort of. There are a few little changes here, a few little details. Some sections, in fact, of the upper here are very reminiscent of the vapor weave we find on the Next Percent from Nike. The tongue, for example, the side portions there are basically vapor weave, from what it feels like. Slightly more coarse, perhaps. Those who like a sort of more plush upper are going to be out of luck here. It very much is synthetic here around the toe box and the sides of the shoe, although you do get some suede, felt type material around the collar and also the heel. I wouldn't say it's particularly uncomfortable on foot, but yeah, the purists, traditionalists, I guess like myself at times, may like the presence of some more natural materials, I suppose. That side, I mean, the Next Percent and a load of the other competitors in this sort of field are far from natural, are they? I was surprised to see there's no lace loop here on the tongue, and yeah, I'll get to that in a minute. The tongue is stitched onto the medial side of the upper, but not the lateral side. As I said, going down half a size, it's comfortably snug. I wouldn't want to go any more than that though. I found that going true to size, I had a reasonable amount of room in the Deviate Nitro, the Liberate Nitro, and also the Velocity Nitro. Yeah, if I'm going for a racer, this is absolutely fine. It's not uncomfortable in any way, just a little more snug. Perhaps along the lines of the Rebel 2 or the RC Elite 2. Strangely, the 29.5cm measurement here that Puma have for the 10.5 is the same as Nike's 11, so not quite sure how that works out. On foot, the feel is comfortable, though if you take the Liberate Nitro for example, there's far less padding than you get on this shoe. Anyone that's got the Liberate Nitro, you'll wonder how they could pare down the upper anymore. Well, they have. Heel section's almost completely the same, but yeah, the rest of the shoe just feels minimized even more. The eyelets around the top of this shoe here are a little bit shabby in terms of their finish, just not been cut very well at times, which is a bit of a downer when you consider the price of the shoe. That's the only upper construction issue though that I can see at all, and the laces are perfect in length, not too stretchy. Do be warned, there is no heel counter here whatsoever. It's completely flexible, so if that's something you need, this isn't a shoe for you. I encountered no heel slip whatsoever on my initial 10-mile run. Yes, there's no heel counter here, but that just goes to show that all that extra padding sometimes around the heel of a shoe really isn't needed. It's all about the lockdown on the top and the sides of the foot. I mean, aesthetically, I think this thing rocks. It's a beautiful colourway. Simple but colourful. And I do love the almost blotting paper style Puma logo on the side of the shoe. I took these up for a relatively punishing effort in some quite warm temperatures here in the UK right now. 10 miles, 16.1 kilometres, a bit of warm up followed by 3 reps of 2 miles at my half marathon pace. And that was after quite a long day as well. I was pretty tired mentally, I suppose. So I was really proud of my effort actually to get through that. It's one of those when you finish, you're fist pumping. It was good. I had no issues with the upper on that run, aside from one thing. I had some quite ridiculous tongue slip, which meant that this portion of the tongue had kind of swiveled round and was rubbing on the top of my foot. Enough that I had a bit of a blister form there, and it's a bit sore and painful. On both of my feet as well, so it's not a deal breaker as such. You could wear a longer sock, one that creeps up further around my foot, and I think Mrs. Eddbud can probably fix the problem with the needle and thread. But do you really want to be doing that for a shoe that cost 169 Earth credits? As such, I'm going to have to take off some points here. I'm going to give this a 2.5 out of 3 for the upper. It's great, but it's not perfect. Bit sad really, because it was a consistently good ride throughout the whole run. But yeah, when I stopped and looked down at my feet, it was a nasty surprise.
Midsole now.
At half marathon pace for me, this shoe really sings. I'm talking Freddie Mercury stuff. Feels rather nimble yet bouncy in nature. It's all nitro foam here with Puma's carbon plate that they call the Inno plate. Though the plate underneath does look slightly different in terms of presentation to the one featured on the Deviate Nitro. One thing to note here, I have read certain bits of information about the foam that's used and they suggest it's different. Maybe it's slightly less dense. I wouldn't say there's a massive difference. I have run in quite a few of the other Nitro shoes and maybe there's a slight difference. I mean, you're talking really sensitive feet to pick up something like that. It says Elite here, but it feels very close to the stuff on the other shoes. Maybe it's one of those fresh foam / fresh foam X type situations. Lots of bounce here and very forgiving. The legs feel amazing the next day. I think the only other shoes that do that really are things that utilise Fuel Cell and maybe Zoom X. Very stable in the foot strike compared to the next percent, and it feels wider than the Rebel 2 and thus a little more stable. Similar compression but less squash. It feels like a more rebound type material underneath your feet, and very smooth in the transition as well. Very much a best of some of the other carbon plate models out there. So more dense, less squashy, so perhaps a little closer towards the Endorphin series. It was even palatable at 8 minute per mile or 5 minute per kilometre type paces today, and really energising around 4 minutes 15 per kilometre or 6 minutes 50, which is my target half marathon goal pace. Closer to Fuel Cell perhaps, but then denser like the Power Run PB stuff in the Endorphin series. Yeah, the plate isn't as in your face as something like the Vaporfly 4%, but then do you really want it to be really in your face and to feel it that much? Maybe some people don't want that. It's really there to provide more rigidity. They do say it's more flexible in the forefoot to the midfoot. I'm not so sure about that. Maybe it's the placement or something. But yeah, closer to the RC Elite 2 underfoot rather than the RC Elite. Perhaps a more aggressive feeling than the Endorphin Pro. Certainly more rigidity and pop there than the Endorphin Speed. And obviously less weight here than both of those shoes. I mean, 220 grams is nuts really for the amount of cushion that you're getting here. It really is a bit of a groundbreaker in terms of that aspect. There's nothing I really would change about this shoe. It was wondrous to run in at high pace. And to get that type of performance out of myself after the day that I'd had, it's quite amazing. Fun, flighty and exuberant. After my initial run, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 3 for the midsole. Outsole now. Now, the outsole here is very interesting. Less lug depth than the Deviate Nitro, and there's some strange almost model train, microfiber cloth, Sabutio turf protruding through the holes in the rubber. It's really odd. I don't know if you can pick up on that, guys, but it's kind of like a astroturfy type stuff. It's really weird. Underneath the rubber, the round base of Tony Cotti or Julian Dix would have been ideal on top of that. Remember, Subbuteo is the champion game of all. Yeah, the outsole design here remains the same from the Deviate Nitro, but with less lug depth. They've even pared that down, you see, to minimise the weight. Focused really on racing, I suppose, or high tempo training sessions, and that certainly was today's training session. There's nowhere to hide for grit and gravel here, and it's a real killer on the road in the pavement. I wouldn't run trails in this, just not designed for it. Some great grab of the surface with a real sticky-like feel. Think of that toffee that you can buy from a coastal gift store. I think with that really bouncy feel that you get from the Deviate Nitro Elite, the grip is really needed. And it really does help with cornering and very sharp turns. I really am intrigued by that strange stuff that's underneath the rubber. Puma, if you can tell me what it is, I'd be most interested. Clearly, only time will tell how quickly this wears down. If it's anything like the stuff on the other Puma shoes, then it will survive an apocalypse. My initial run, I've got to give it a nice solid 3 out of 3. I can't see any major problems with it at all. We know Puma grip and the rubber used there works well in both dry and wet conditions, so I don't see this being any different. It's a race shoe after all, guys. You know, I'm not going to expect thousands of miles out of it. You see people wearing down shoes like this to the point of falling to bits and failing, and I just don't really see that as being a thing. Use it for a few hundred miles. It's a race shoe. If you want value, go and buy like a Glide Ride or something. That will last longer than all of us. It's a solid 3 out of 3 for me for outsole after my initial runs. Value now. So 169 Earth credits. This makes it about the 3rd cheapest carbon plate shoe that I've got in my collection. You got the Zoom Fly 3 and the Rocket X. They come in at about 140 Earth credits. Aside from the tongue slide and the sloppy build, the midsole and the outsole absolutely rock. More rigidity there than the Endorphin Speed. Obviously that has a nylon plate, so this has a slight advantage there. It's quite a formidable shoe, and it's lived up to the expectations I had before opening the box. More pop in the midsole material here, certainly, than the Zoom Fly 3, and vastly more forgiving. Better lockdown over the top of the foot than the Rocket X. Puma have just got the right combination here in terms of the midsole stack, the upper lightness. It's got all the great bits of the Liberate Nitro upper and kind of transplanted them onto even more foam. I think as a new option in the marketplace, there's some distance between this and some of those cheaper shoes. It really does present some hot competition to Nike's Vaporfly series and maybe even the Asics Metaspeed Sky that's proved quite popular recently. Will people be attracted by the mega aggressive pricing that Puma have on this shoe, and also that super lightweight? Just a forgiving, slightly less rigid but very smooth performance. Only time will tell if this new contender holds together. I think I'll probably give it a 2.8 out of 3 for value after my initial run. It's absolutely a race option for me, I have to be honest. Probably over the half marathon distance. Not sure I'd take it past that. Someone will. Somebody has, maybe. New Balance and Asics bound to be a bit worried about this one. And Nike and Adidas will no doubt be looking at the increased Puma shoe sales over the last year. So if I've totted up the scores correctly, I've got 11.3 out of 12 for the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite Racer SP. The Puma strikes again. So I think I'm going to need Mrs. Eddbud to get out the needle and thread to fix that tongue issue. Just watch the sizing a little bit, guys. You can probably afford a half down if it's going to be a race shoe. Have you got this one, guys? Have you tested it out? What did you make of it? Let me know in the comments below. A musical interlude for you. Brian Setzer has a new album out. Go and check it out, guys. It's a good one for running. Favourites are Checkered Flag and Smash Up on Highway 1. Drip Drop as well is quite interesting. Obviously you got some rockabilly style tunes here. Rock and roll is Brian Setzer's main game. And some interesting surf style guitar playing here. Some wonderful guitar tones. Very simple as well, you can just hear everything that's going on. I think there was quite an interesting recording technique used where Brian was kind of coming up with the ideas of the songs, laying them down in the studio, and then they were utilising parts that had been recorded in other places. So he had his drummer and bass player in other parts of the world, I think perhaps at times. Obviously with the pandemic that was going on, that was the only way that he could sort of safely record. All of the songs are based around motorcycles, which is one of Brian Setzer's big passions, as well as vintage guitars and amplifiers, of course. If you are a guitar player, you will love some of the tones that Brian produces here. Go and check it out, guys. Gotta Have the Rumble by Brian Setzer. Okay, that just about wraps up for today's video. Thanks for sticking with me, guys. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications when I launch those new videos for you. And it really helps the channel out too if you give this video a thumbs up, like, and also share it with your running buddies. My name's Eddbud, and I'll be seeing you